International Airport, just past midnight. A ground crew worker is finishing his shift on the tarmac when he looks up and sees an aircraft on approach. Too low. He waits for the engine noise. It doesn't come. Then he realizes the shape isn't gliding, it's flapping. Something with a wingspan wider than a small plane passes over the terminal in total silence, and as it banks, 2 points of red light turn toward him. He doesn't file a report. Nobody at that airport files reports anymore. He goes home, sits in the dark, and searches the internet for what he just saw. And he finds a map of his own city with 161 pins stuck in it. This is freaky deaky. File 6 is open. Everyone knows the first half of this story. November 1966, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. 2 young couples drive out to an abandoned munitions site north of town, and something rises up in their headlights. A grey figure, roughly the shape of a man, with wings and 2 enormous red eyes. They flee at high speed, and later say the thing followed the car. Over the next year, the town logs somewhere in the region of 24 encounters. The newspapers call it the Mothman. Then, on the 15th of December, 1967, in the middle of rush hour, the Silver Bridge over the Ohio River collapses. 46 people die, and the town that had spent a year watching something with red eyes decides those 2 facts belong in the same sentence. That's where most people think the story ends. A local monster, a tragedy, a book, a film, a gift shop, a festival, folklore, sealed and shelved. Except it didn't end. It moved. Around 2011, reports of a large winged humanoid start appearing in a place nobody expects. Not the Appalachian backcountry. Chicago. 3rd largest city in America. 9.5 million people in the metro area, and something is being seen over their rooftops. In 2017, it stops being a trickle. That single year produces over 50 reported encounters across the Chicago area. Parks, riversides, rail yards, residential streets. Witnesses who have never met, who mostly have no idea the others exist, describing a black humanoid figure between 6 and 10 feet tall, with bat-like wings spanning 12 to 15 feet, and red eyes. The researcher who compiled them, Lon Strickler, didn't call it Mothman. He called it the Chicago Phantom. The press made the other connection for him, and the pins kept going into the map. 161 of them. File 6A, the airport. Of all the locations on that map, one cluster stands out badly. O'Hare International Airport. Depending on the year, one of the 2 or 3 busiest airports on the planet. Thousands of staff. Radar covering every cubic meter of the sky above it. Cameras everywhere. And multiple airport employees have reported seeing a large winged humanoid figure on or above the grounds. Think about who these witnesses are. Ground crew, baggage handlers, people whose entire working life is spent watching things move through the sky and identifying them instantly. These are not people who mistake a bird for an aircraft. They spend 12 hours a day telling the difference. And these are people with something to lose. There is no upside to walking into an operations office at America's busiest airport and saying you saw a 7-foot man with wings over runway 28. That's not a story you tell for attention. That's a story that follows you around the break room for the rest of your career. Most of them said nothing for years. File 6B, The Creek, June 2022. Rockford, Illinois, about 90 minutes northwest of the city. A woman is out near Kent Creek in the evening when she hears a sound she cannot place. A screech, close and wrong. She turns toward it and sees a bat-winged humanoid figure. Not a bird, not a person. Something standing upright with wings, screeching at her from a distance she describes as far too close. She runs, and the detail that stays with her afterwards isn't the wings or the size, it's the sound. She keeps circling back to it, that it wasn't an animal call, that it seemed directed at her. 2 years later, in the same region, another witness reports the same thing. File 6C, The Alleyway. Late July 2024. Chicago. A couple are walking home around 11:30 at night, cutting through an alley behind a residential block near a small city park. They're talking, laughing about nothing. Ordinary end to an ordinary night. Then one of them stops walking. Just stops, mid-sentence. Above them, hovering between the buildings, is a tall, slender winged figure. Not flying past. Not perched. Hovering. Holding position in the air over a Chicago alleyway with wings out. In a city where the ambient light never fully goes dark. They ran. And here's the part that matters. That report only exists because Netflix ran an episode on this case, and afterwards, viewers started sending in their own encounters. Producers passed them to the investigators. New pins, new map, which raises the obvious question. How many encounters are sitting in people's heads right now, unreported, because there was never anywhere to send them? Now, the rational explanation, and it's a good one. Sandhill cranes. If you don't live in the Midwest, you may not appreciate what a sandhill crane actually is. It is a bird that stands up to 4 feet tall with a wingspan of 6 to 7 feet. It has long dangling legs, a slow heavy wing beat, and a call that has been compared to a rattling scream. They migrate through Illinois in enormous numbers, twice a year. They fly at night, and in a city lit from below by streetlights and headlights, a crane passing overhead becomes a large dark silhouette with a strange shape and no clear detail. Great blue herons do a similar job at closer range. Standing on a riverbank at night, a heron is a tall, thin, upright figure that unfolds into something much larger than you expected. And then there's the psychology, which is arguably the stronger half of the explanation. Once a story exists in a city, it shapes what people see. Media coverage in 2017 gave Chicagoans a template, a shape to hang an ambiguous experience on. Researchers who study this call it expectation. You don't consciously invent anything. Your brain simply reaches for the nearest available answer, and now the nearest available answer has wings. So, birds, streetlights, and suggestion. That's the case for the defense, and it accounts for a great many of those pins. Not all of them. Cranes don't hover. A sandhill crane in migration is going somewhere at speed in a straight line. It does not hold position in the air above an alleyway and look down at 2 people. Cranes don't perch on light poles and street lamps, which multiple Chicago witnesses describe. Cranes don't stand upright on 2 legs on the ground, at human height or above, and they don't charge at people. And cranes have heads. This is the detail that unsettles me most about the whole file, and it appears again and again in the reports. Witnesses frequently describe the figure as having no clearly defined head at all. A body, a torso, wings, red eyes, and nothing you could point to and call a face. That is a specific, strange, repeated observation, and it is not what anyone describes when they misidentify a large bird. When people mistake a heron for something, they say it looked like a heron. Then there's the witness pool itself. Aviation ground staff. People at an international airport whose professional competence is literally the identification of objects in the sky. If the explanation is that Chicagoans can't tell a bird from a monster, you have to explain why the misidentification is happening at the one location in the state most densely populated, with experts at not doing that. And then we get to the thing that nobody in this story wants to say out loud. The Mothman is not remembered as a monster, it's remembered as a warning. That's the entire weight of the Point Pleasant legend. That for a year, something with red eyes was seen around a small town, and then the bridge came down and 46 people went into the river. Believers don't think it caused the collapse. They think it was standing there, in advance, looking at it. Similar winged figures have been reported before other disasters elsewhere in the world, including, according to some accounts, in the region around Chernobyl in the weeks before the reactor failed. Whether you find that convincing or not, it's the reason the pattern frightens people who know the folklore. So now put that belief on a map of Chicago and look at where the pins cluster. An international airport, one that moves tens of millions of people a year. I want to be careful here, because this is where this kind of story usually goes off a cliff. Nothing has happened. There has been no disaster at O'Hare. The sightings have continued for well over a decade, and the planes have kept taking off and landing, exactly as they should, which leaves you two options, and I'm not sure which one I prefer. Either the Harbinger theory is wrong, and this is birds and imagination over a big cold city, or it's right, and the thing is still there, still watching, still waiting. There are 161 pins on that map, and every one of them started as a person standing somewhere ordinary. A car park, a footpath, an alley behind their own building, looking up at something they had no words for, and deciding in that moment whether they were ever going to tell anyone. Most of them chose not to, for years, so if you've seen it, you already know how this works. Tell us what color the eyes were, and tell us whether it had a face. The file stays open. New files every week. If you made it this far without checking over your shoulder, you're braver than most. I'm Freaky DEEKY, and I tell the stories, the maps, the textbooks, and your nightlight would rather you didn't hear. There are 2 more on screen right now. The skulls pointing right at them. And if you want a little scare every week, subscribe. It's free. Unlike sleep after this channel, sleep tight or don't. I'm not your mom.